Welcome back to the class, everyone. Galactic Legend Leia just hit the game. We've got Jedi Knight Cal Kestis coming back in probably a month or so, and Malakos himself is going to be dropping in the end of this week from Conquest. And that all just reminds us that this game is constantly changing. Our team makeups, our builds, all the characters we're building up. So this begs the question for me, if everything is constantly changing, which characters have enough versatility to always be useful? Which brings us to today's video, the top 10 most plug and play characters. So as said, and probably our most wordy intro to date, this whole video is going to be talking about characters that don't just have one home, but rather have 8 or 10 or whatever homes that they can be constantly shifted around in. When you're building a roster, you're typically forced to go after this concept of full teams. And that is a great idea, but a lot of times it doesn't really pan out that way because of how you're constantly have to shifting around for legendary requirements and whatnot. So the whole point of this is, what characters can you gear now that you know will not just be useful in the next 3 or 4 or 5 months, but will end up having usefulness, maybe not in the same team they're in now, but in a different one a month or 2 from now. So getting started off, I feel it's very appropriate that we start with the man, the myth, the legend, R2-D2 himself. We have called him the jack of all trades, master of none for a long time now because he is useful in like 10 different squads. He's okay in the Padme squad, he functions well in the JMK squad, he functions in the Rey squad, he also does pretty well in the JTR squad. He can also be using CLS if you don't have 3PO yet, and finally he's even pretty good in the sortie droid team because he gets to have all that droid synergy and then also assist BB-8. Now he actually is master of one. He has a really good squad in the very end game with Galactic Legend Leia, which I will hopefully be able to partake in at some point in the future, not right now given he's R7 and whatnot. But the reason why he's good in all these isn't just because the fact that he has all 4 of those tags that we listed out, but it's because he actually brings relevant things to the table. He has a stat sharing mechanic where he will get new stats based off of who he's with and then be able to spread them back around. And then on top of that, he makes it so that when any light side character, that's just great, even if you have a light side character that doesn't share any of those other factions, like say Nest, she still gets to partake in this. Whenever they critically hit enemy, they just spill all debuffs on themselves, which is really nice in a world where some teams just do a stupid amount of debuffs. So R2-D2 is going to make the list. You'll find somewhere to use him today, you'll find somewhere to use him tomorrow, and eventually in the distant future for some of us, you'll find it with a Galactic Legend Leia. Next up is going to be Moff Gideon, and Moff Gideon has kind of had this title of plug and play character for a while now, and the reason why is he just has too many, in a good way, universal tools. His Know Your Adversary unique, he puts Demoralize on all enemies. This isn't conditional on anything. He doesn't need an Empire or an Imperial Trooper or an Imperial Remnant. He doesn't need any of those leads or really any of those characters on his team, period, to be able to make it so that the enemy team has less offense, critical chance, and critical damage. That just sits there and doesn't go away until he's dead. Very useful in general. Control the situation also isn't really specific to any other faction when it comes to giving out the 25% turn meter, meaning that he can help a lot of other squads out there actually get the jump on different teams. The biggest, clearest one to me is Geonosians. Geonosians, while they are a pretty good squad, they're really slow and they can't get out in front of a lot of teams, and oftentimes that means they just get completely destroyed. You were able to throw Moff Gideon on the Geonosian team, taking out, say, I don't know who, Sunfac, throw him in, you reduce all the turn meter, and it's essentially the same as your team starting with a 25% turn meter boost on top of everything else that they also get, and everything else that Moff Gideon does. And really the last thing is the Darksaber Lunge, which is a very basic ability, but also very good, especially right now with the thick crawling era that we're in. He inflicts armor shred for the rest of the battle, which slowly tears apart an opponent's defense. So he just has so many tools in his kit that are nice to have in almost any squad. While he does have a few specific places he shines the most, like Imperial Trooper or Empire teams, he can be used outside with Geonosians as well as Padme, because the special that reduces turn meter also gives protection up, which turns into courage. So overall, a pretty plug and play character. This one is one that it took me a while to see, and she just fits so well in so many squads. So it's probably important that we point out the obvious. She has a really strong synergy with clones, both in her leadership as well in her unique. But it goes beyond that. A lot of stuff in Shakti's kit is not dependent on who are allies. And they don't have to be Galactic Republic Jedi or clone for that matter. She will give offense up to the entire team, anyone who didn't already have it, which is great for pretty much everything but feats, because feats you want to get them over and over again. But that's universal for her, as well as her assault team ability here, dispel debuffs on all allies. There's no condition to that. You can put her in actually one of the more common uses for this is to put her with an Imperial Trooper team versus Lord Vader if you don't have Iden built up or something like that. Cleanse all the dots off the Imperial Troopers and then just watch them go berserk, taking down the Lord Vader team. So again, just a lot of universal mechanics here. And at the end of the day, she actually is still a really good Jedi to use with Jedi Luke or Jedi Master Luke. The cleanse is really nice for Jedi Master Luke. One of the things that's nice for Jedi Knight Luke lead is her base speed is just naturally very high. I understand that most people aren't going to be able to mod her to quite the state, and that's not really the point though, but her base is already so high that she even has the option to get this high. She can outspeed most other Jedi out there, including Hondo, which Hondo always has kind of this reputation of being a really fast Jedi, so that's quite nice. Next up is going to be another Togruta, which is our friend Kat, or Commander Ahsoka Tano. And this one I just found interesting, and I know that there's a community out there that'll hate me for saying this, but they did not need to give this character the scoundrel tag. She was already going to be used in several places as it stands. And one of the big reasons from this, and I've complained about this, or rather glorified this for the longest time now, she gives a flat or 50% offense, critical damage, defense, and health boost to all light side allies as long as she has a Galactic Republic unaligned Force user or Scoundrel ally present. That is ridiculous. Like, if we start to open up these factions here, look how just insanely large the Scoundrel faction is. It goes down and down and down, and the other factions aren't small either. Galactic Republic also, this isn't like one or two teams. There are a ton of characters in here. And even the unaligned Force user one, where you can pair up with Rey and watch Rey do 50% more off, or have 50% more offense than Shuri does, is nuts. So again, yes, ultimately you want her in a JMK team. Can she work in a Rey team? Sure. Can she work in a band team? Absolutely. In a Dash team? Also yes. Padme to help punch up against other Galactic Legends? Totally. Just very overall good. I will say this, she's not as good with the unaligned Force users because a lot of her synergy does get stripped. Specifically, like Xian, this can only go to a Galactic Republic or Scoundrel. But overall, sometimes just being a walking stat boost isn't the worst thing in the world for your teams. Next up is Watt. This one has also been pretty long standing and somewhat obvious. The reason why is while he does have some specific Separatist synergy, he can give his specific text to anyone he wants, and these are just good universal things. Having a tank always taunt while they have protection and then also dispel themselves, very nice. Being able to gain turn meter and prevent revives, very nice. Just a general health and protection recover, also good. He's just overall just has a lot of tools that can help a lot of teams do things that they wouldn't normally be able to do. I think one of the most useful things he does in the end game is protect C and SLKR from constantly getting ability blocked. If they're ability blocked, they both really struggle to be able to do what they want to do. And if they can cleanse that, then well, they can just beat entirely really strong teams. C versus JML. While you can use a bunch of Sith, you could also not only use one character, get better banners, and have probably better success rates against even the really good JML teams. Next up are going to be our pre-taunters, and I really like these two. I've talked about L3 a lot recently, just because L3 self-cleanses, so she doesn't rely on being in a Scoundrel or Droid team to be able to not only pre-taunt, but continually keep taunting throughout the battle. And if she's both Scoundrels and Droids, she has some nice synergy there too. And the reason why GBA is going to be on here is because of how the Geonosian Brute works. Not only does he pre-taunt, but you can't really stop the summon from coming back. And what I mean by that is there's a ton of really good taunters out there, and quite frankly, even taunters that revive. The issue is if you have an anti-revive mechanic on the enemy team and they use that to kill whatever tank you have, then they don't get to come back. GBA gets to bypass that entirely because you're not actually reviving your brute, you are just resummoning a new one. Not to mention the tank themselves gets to share stats with Geonosian Brute Alpha, meaning that they're just naturally going to be tankier than a lot of other characters out there. You have a way to resummon, cleanse, heal, etc. Just overall a good character that can be used in a lot of different teams. Again, similar to Watt, GBA is used again with a lot of Galactic Legends to help them beat other Galactic Legends, kind of filling in the gap in a few places for characters specifically like Sith Eternal. Next up is going to be Hondo, and Hondo, they did a really good job with this kit, and one of the reasons why he works in so many different squads is because not only did they give him the neutral tag is very bad, it doesn't really do anything for him. In fact, it does nothing for him, except for allows him to play in several different game modes in PvE. But one of the things that did come along with it that they put into his kit is they kept putting all these clauses in that he works both with light side and dark side allies, meaning that he's not just chained to one type of squad. He can be used in a bounty hunter squad if you need him to, because he has a scoundrel tag and will gain turn meter at the very beginning, and JC to help lock up a character that would otherwise be very problematic. Dash and Bam are probably his two most normal places as well. One of my favorite ones that I've recently discovered is if you're out there and you have a Maul team and you don't really have that fast of a character, you can put him in there, and if Maul teams typically have scoundrels on them like Bo-Katan and Canderous, or maybe even Bam, he will go out in front because of all the turn meter he's gaining from his GAC Omicron, and then he'll use a special. He'll trigger Maul, Maul will trigger Canderous, Canderous will trigger Maul again, and then you just get to blow up the entire enemy team without having to use another really plug-and-play character like Wat Tambor, or having to get Dredic up to some ungodly speed. So that is going to be Hondo, that works with, again, a variety of scoundrel teams, and just in general, being able to go really quickly or captive an enemy is nice. I do like him on defense a little bit too, just because if any team out there is really susceptible to Wampa, you throw him on and he captives Wampa, and then Wampa stops getting to be Wampa at that point. Next up is going to be Thrawn, and Thrawn has lost, and that's just the nature of the game, he's lost a little bit of viability over the past, 5 years that he's been out. And it's not that he's gotten worse, it's that the majority of teams in the rest of the game have just gotten so much better. But there's still a lot here that's pretty good, and I think one of the big ones that comes down to is swapping turn meter with other target ally and dispel all debuffs, and they recover 40% protection. The reason why this is important, number one, it is, again, not tied to one specific faction, so he can do this with whoever he wants. That being said, it is also swapping turn meter, and this is a really nice cheat code, essentially. If you ever run into an enemy team like SLKR with Hux or JMK, they stop turn meter gains or bonus turn meter gains. Swapping turn meter doesn't count. So again, I guess we're really focusing on the C counter. If you're using a C counter to JMK and you need to get another turn immediately to your armor to apply Beskar to your C so he doesn't die, and you don't want your armor to die, this completely gets to bypass JMK's no turn meter gain, because in reality, you're not really gaining turn meter, you're swapping turn meter, and you're again getting out of those situations, and he can help with a lot of those in a variety of subjects. Also, Fracture is just really nice. It's fallen off quite a bit in importance ever since it got nerfed against Galactic Legends, but there's still a lot of characters out there that are important that you still can Fracture, like Malgus, for example, or Starkiller, although I've never really seen that one. And last, and not really least, is going to be Bam. Bam is in here for a very similar reasons as Hondo and or Cat. The Scoundrel tag is just really wide and goes really far. Not only can he be used in a Fennec team to help take down Lord Vader because he gets to interrupt Maul's huge string of hits, but he's also not bad under his own lead. He's also not bad under Dash because of how many hits they get to come out whenever he uses Whistling Birds. He's also not bad under a Maul team because not only is he Mandalorian, but a lot of his unique abilities that trigger when there are scoundrels or scoundrel allies around happens quite often, because again, a Maul team is typically going to have Bo-Katan and Canderous, who are, you guessed it, scoundrels. And with how Maul's lead works, he's going to be passing around taunt a lot, which means you're going to get opportunities to get those damage immunities out there. So that is going to make up our top 10 most plug and play characters. I did try to make these most accessible and not just, I didn't want to put like JMK on here and be like, oh yeah, throw JMK at any team and it instantly gets better. But a character that you can actually work on now, they can help your beginning or newer teams still be relevant in your mid-game teams, and then maybe even be some of the most important characters in the end game, like R2-D2 and Cat. That is going to be it for today, guys. Let me know what other character out there we missed that is also really good in a ton of different teams. And until next time, stay awesome.